Good evening. My name is Paul. This is Dave. I am a beer enthusiast, and Dave here is a beer judge and home brewer. And today we are going to be talking about a beer called Samichlaus, or maybe we should say Samichlaus.
Yeah, so this is one of our winter beers, one of my favorite. So I'm excited about it. It is very, very malty focused beer.
This beer we looked up online, and to be honest, for the most part, there is more information on the bottle than we actually found online, which I thought was kind of odd. It is brewed in Eggenberg. It is a product of Austria, and it is brewed once a year on December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, and then aged for 10 months. And it is a, what is it, this thing, a Eisenbock?
Yeah, so it's an Eisenbock. This is a crazy kind of concept. So if you're familiar with a lot of chemistry, alcohol freezes at a different temperature as water. And so what they do is it's almost like a distilling process. Distilling, you're trying to concentrate the alcohol in it. So they're going to brew it, and it may brew, I don't know the specifics, but let's say it brews to like 8% alcohol. So if it brews to 8% alcohol, what they do is then they freeze it. And then water freezes first
And
before the alcohol and before any of the malt. So what they do is they take the ice out. And what that leaves is concentrated malt, concentrated alcohol, in a unique beer. So it's one of the ways that they can get into these higher alcohols, 14% alcohol by volume.
Yeah, which is obscenely high actually for a beer.
Obscenely high for a beer.
In fact, that's high for a wine, isn't it?
It's high for a wine. I've had Samichlaus before. It's one of my favorite kind of beers, so it's one that I'm excited to have Paul try, because Paul likes some of the higher alcohol beers as well. I'm expecting to be some raisiny flavors, some plum flavors, some really rich toffee flavors. These things that you'll find in very malt-centered beers, but in beers that are more towards the higher alcohol level. It's bottom fermented, which basically means that it is a lager yeast. So it's going to be more like a bock. And if you're familiar with the bock styles, I like all sorts of different kind of bocks. I actually have a bock on tap in my garage right now. So
yeah, and it's a good beer too. But yeah, we looked this stuff up online and really didn't find a whole lot. But we do know that it's brewed only once a year on December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, like I said before. It is aged for 10 months. So right now what we're drinking is a little over a year old as far as the product is concerned. But I'm curious to try it and see what comes out of it, because it's something new for me, and it is actually labeled as a malt liquor, which means there's got to be some sort of distillation in there, which is covered by the ice distillation.
Higher alcohol beers age better, so the fact that it's a year older, and you want to age higher alcohol beers more. Typically, they kind of round themselves out over that kind of time.
Call me Mr. Butterfingers here.
One of the other things I also wanted to give a shot at is take one of my nice little fun tools, kind of see what type of temperature we're drinking these at. Look at it, 62 degrees and about 64 degrees. So that's probably about the outside temperature here in December.
It's cold.
And I'm going to forego the standard glass, because I actually have a specialty glass, one of my favorite. I actually did a lot of beer judging with this glass because it's fluted really cool. And if you see here, it happens to be, oh, it doesn't like kind of show up. But it is a Samichlaus glass. So I'm going to go ahead and try it with this.
So the beer is actually really clear. I don't know if we can get this in there here. It's not cloudy at all. And it's got a very nice copper caramel kind of color.
Yeah, this is like one of my favorite colors. It's a light red. It's like a ruby red, but it's very clear. You can see through it.
Yeah, there's zero clouds.
The
Oh,
flavors.
that's got a nice smell.
Yeah, I mean, out of this world comparatively. When you talk about beer, I mean, this is almost like more of like a fine wine because you start looking at the kind of flavors and smells that you see out of some of these that we've been doing lately here, which I'm always excited about. It's nothing that you would relate as beer. If you gave this to someone and said, "Oh, have a beer," they probably wouldn't even recognize it as beer. It's truly an amazing. It's the same ingredients,
Got a
but
very
it's an
mild
amazing,
smell.
amazing smells and tastes.
Fruity, like raisiny kind of smell.
Yeah, the raisiny, the raisin plummy kind of smell. Rich toffee, like it's really even toffee. Like if you really
It's
kind
kind
of
of
smell
nice.
like a
I
really
actually
rich toffee.
really like the fragrance.
For me, it makes me reminiscent of all the other times that I've had this beer.
I don't know what to say yet.
It's exactly what I'm expecting.
This is very unusual for a beer to me. I haven't had this before. This is not a standard. This is something that would be a very unusual beer. I mean, like some of the beers I like are, still very kind of beer centric, but this is definitely got that dried fruit, dried raisin, dried plum. It's not a very thick beer. Like a lot of other beers I've had, they've got a much heavier mouthfeel than this does.
Sweet,
It's sweet.
warm, has this warm, but it's not so warm that you're tasting the warmth. It's almost in and within that
the
sweetness.
winter lager had actually more warm feeling than this, and it had a lower ABV.
Yeah,
This is
I agree.
it's got a nice aftertaste. It really does have a lot of that dried fruit flavor going on.
You also notice it doesn't really hold much of a head. And it almost, if you really kind of put it out there and you kind of look on the edges, it almost does have a little bit of legs on it, but almost like the mead or a wine
It
that you
sticks
can
to the
see
glass.
that the alcohol kind of sticks to the glass almost in a syrupy level come down. And it is certainly,
It does kind of feel syrupy, but it's not like thick. You know what I mean? It's not like you're drinking maple syrup. It's a hint there. It's definitely got a strong aftertaste. I do like it. Makes me want another drink.
it's a unique experience by far. It's a great presentation. You won't see much of a head on them, mainly because the higher alcohol beers have a harder time holding the head. So they just kind of dissipate.
I like the fact that it's not very fizzy, to be honest.
Yeah, not very fizzy. It does have a pretty decent amount of carbonation to it, though.
Yeah,
You'll
it's
see a little
enough.
bit of that carbonation.
It's
bite.
not too much. It's enough. The bite is definitely there from the carbonation, but it's not going to leave you feeling burpy. I would drink this in lieu of like a White Russian, for example. In fact, I'd probably rather have this than a White Russian. I like White Russians after I eat.
Yeah, for me, it's almost like pouring off something that's going to be more of like a liquor,
Is there a hint of chocolatey to you? I mean, definitely the malt is definitely there. The dried fruit flavors are definitely there. Maybe a toffee or a chocolate. There's a certain sweet candy flavor involved in this. Can't quite pin it.
It's so intense on the tongue. The alcohol just it grabs those like malty kind of flavors and it hits you like it's a baseball bat over the tongue. I mean, it really just kind of penetrates them in there. So it really creates this really malty experience.
Yeah, but
So I'm not really picking up chocolate, but I'm picking up some really, really intense malty flavors. And probably one of the most intense malty. I mean, Eisenbock is by far one of those kind of styles that takes all these things that you nurture when you're trying to brew and it just intensifies it, to a whole new level.
No, this is definitely pleasant.
The smell is just amazing to me.
And there's a complete lack of like the hops flavor. And I really like the hops flavor, the stronger hops flavor. There's a complete lack of that, but I am not missing it at all. It doesn't feel like it's unbalanced. And maybe it's the higher alcohol content that brings the strength to it, or the balance to the sweetness. But
Yeah. I think here
like
they're
it.
trying to balance that high alcohol level with the sweetness and the maltness with the sweetness, but I'm not tasting the hops either.
Like I don't smell them. I don't.
I'm sure
taste
they're
them.
there, but they're there at such a low level.
They're like ghost hops.
Yeah, they're not, for sure, they're not why you're buying this beer. And I love the concept of it as being a dessert beer, because if you're familiar with like having a dessert drink, maybe after a good meal, this would be something that would be perfect for that.
No,
You're not just gonna chug it down. You're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna smell it. You're gonna be like, I've never smelt that.
This would be in lieu of, like I said, a White Russian or a Grasshopper or a Brandy Alexander. This would be a really good example of something else to try if you get the opportunity.
Yeah. So the other kind of beers that you might see these kind of characteristics are like barley wines. Like barley wines will have these kind of characteristics where they're really like dark fruity, alcohol kind of scent to them. It has a lot of that preference. So if you're familiar with that kind of style, but this is an Eisenbock, so it's kind of a version of that. Probably clean yeast because it's using lager yeast. So lager yeast typically will create a really clean profile. So you're not going to get a lot of estery flavors. So you're really smelling a lot of the malts, and you're also smelling that alcohol and the way the alcohol just pulls that out at a whole new level. Some of these flavors and smells you wouldn't taste in any other beer.
No, this is very unique. I'm definitely picking up caramel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely noticing a caramel to it. The toffee is obviously there. It's I don't know. It kind of makes me want some water with it.
Yeah, it does have a dryness to it, probably from the alcohol that just kind of creates a little bit of that.
Well,
So I can
14% is pretty hefty. I mean, that's like competing with your Jack and Coke kind of thing if it's poured with proper ratios.
This is probably exemplifies why I love beer so much, because these are the same ingredients that they make so many other styles of beer, a bock or a pale ale or any number of the ones that we've done, Hefeweizens, and it is uniquely different. And when you start breaking down, like this is uniquely different to almost any other beer that you'll have, but that's one of the things that I just love about it is that each beer is going to be a unique experience. This is definitely one that's going to give you that unique experience. I love the color.
The color
for me is like what I hope a lot of beers are, and I drink a lot of like reddish beers. Mainly
but no,
because
this
they
is
have
like
a lot of the caramel notes.
this is like a I don't know, like a candy-ish color almost.
Yeah.
Like it's got
It's a
this
unique
nice,
color.
fantastic copper and this nice brown to it. It's
Yeah, I have to rate it really high in the color. I might take a little bit off of it because it doesn't have head, and that's just going to be common for the style. You're just not going to get this style with a head on it. There's just really...
I'm not knocking the fact that it doesn't have a head.
Yeah, I think, and the smell to me is magical. Like,
The smell is seductive.
it really is. For me, like on a presentation standpoint, as much as I would love to like drink this and have a head on it, even though it wouldn't be right for the style, I mean, I'm gonna put it up there probably like a 9.75.
Really?
Yeah, on the presentation.
Because I'm going to go with a 9.
That's high for Paul.
As far as the taste is concerned, though, on our rating scale here, I'm going to give this one a good solid 9.8.
Wow.
I mean, this is This is incredible.
Yeah.
It's not too much in any one direction. It's very unique, and I hate to labor the point, but this is a dessert drink.
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to drink this all night, but like, one or two of these after a good healthy meal, I would go a 9.8. And we had steak earlier, so
Hmm.
gotta have dessert.
I agree, the 9.8 on the taste. If you've ever had a Cab Franc, very dark wine, it is super rich in regards to the fragrance and the mouthfeel. It just kind of reminds me of that kind of experience where it's higher alcohol, it has tons of like character to it in the smell, tons of character to it in the taste. Like this is kind of reminiscent of that experience that I have. And to the point, like, it's not that I don't enjoy it, why I'm not just drinking lots of it, but it's just like I enjoy it. I could sit here and just smell it for an hour
Well, this
and
would
just not drink it,
this would
but have just as much experience as drinking it, and then to drink it and then still have that good experience.
my overall impression on this beer. I'm probably gonna split it and go with a 9.4. It's it's fantastic. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's just that I'm a little bit of a stickler, and well, perfection is perfection, and it's almost impossible to achieve.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, perfection, it's really hard to earn a 10 when it comes to kind of breaking down something like that. This is one of my favorite, and this is my kind of wheelhouse of beers. I love those very malt centered, yeast centered beers. This is not a yeast centered, but more malt centered beer. And they do this really, really well. I certainly enjoy tremendously the malt characteristics that you're going to get out of this. I'm going to put about a 9.8 on that, on the overall impression.
I
And
respect that.
and
I
a
respect
personal
that.
preference, I'm a little bit more generous on there. I'm going to give it a 10 because I'm going to put it up there in the top, my top five of beers that I really, really enjoy. This is one that if I see it, I'm going to pick it up and I'm always going to be happy with it. Purely because of the style itself, the way that it's designed, and the way that the palette is built. It's built basically to make me happy. I'm
I'm
pretty
gonna
sure.
say, as far as my personal preference, they knocked this beer out of the park. I can't say anything derogatory about this beer. It's just me and my personal preference. I'm gonna go with a 9.8 on this simply because I would not want to drink this more than maybe two of them.
Hmm.
And when I say that, I'm not saying that with disrespect for the quality of the beer. I'm saying that, like, after two of them at this alcohol content, I won't be able to appreciate it anymore. If I want to drink something that I'm going to appreciate, that's going to be this price point, I definitely want to enjoy it. But it's one of those things like, I really like, a good scotch, but I don't want to drink that all night and pay for a good scotch because at a certain point it's like your palate's screwed. So my personal preference, I'm going to go with a 9.8. If it were a lower alcohol content, which would be impossible to be a lower alcohol content and get these flavors, I would probably give it a higher rating. But a 9.8 is freaking solid. It's a home run. It's a three baser basically.
Yeah, I think that if you have not gotten an opportunity to try something like this, you don't need to buy a bunch. This is one that if you even just saw a single and you picked up a single just to have that experience for the evening, it would be worth your investment. If you're walking through the beer store and you just happen to see one out there and you're like, "Hey, I saw something on that." Pick it up. Take it home, enjoy one, try it after dinner, try it as a dessert,
Hey,
you know.
I'm almost done with mine here after the
Yeah.
video, so I that's got to be something. But
It,
anyway,
it's experience that's just, I think, so unique.
yeah, it's one of those things. Make a trip to the store, see if they have it, check online, see if you can get it. It's definitely worth trying. Bid you all good night. Bid you all cheers. Please like, subscribe. Any suggestions, we're happy to take. And if you know of any like local brew pubs here in Phoenix that we can check out or what have you, please let us know. We'll be happy to do them. We're looking forward to getting Cameron up and what have you in the very near future so we can actually do location shoots and interviews with the brewmasters at those places because we actually want to find out like what makes them tick and what their targets were.
We have a strong beer festival. There's a Arizona Beer Festival. We would love to make it out to the Great American Beer Festival.
Anything to bring you guys
big...
any point of view or any refreshing anything that you would expand your interest in the issue because we're both very passionate people about what we do and the things we love and beer happens to be our crossover. So with that, cheers and good evening.